So one of the key elements of Star Wars Outlaws is going to be its reputation system between K and all of the different crime syndicates in the game. We're able to essentially pick and choose how we interact with each syndicate, and that will directly relate to different positives and negatives between each of these different groups. It's a really interesting mechanic with a hell of a lot of potential, and today that's exactly what we're going to be talking about as I break down the entire reputation system and everything that you need to know about it. Now, overall, in terms of just a quick explanation of what the reputation system is, it is fairly self-explanatory. If you treat the syndicates well, you'll earn their respect and you'll get some slight bonuses. Treat them poorly and you'll pretty much make yourself an enemy of that given crime syndicate. And realistically, that is the crux of the entire mechanic, that their opinions and therefore their reactions to what we do and stuff like that will change depending on how we actually interact with them. Now, this isn't just a tiny little sort of side mechanic that's going to be in here every now and then. This is pretty much like an ongoing thing that will even connect to the main story of the game. So this is going to be pretty important, and it's going to be a pretty large portion of what we're actually doing in Star Wars Outlaws. Your reputation with different syndicates will actually drastically impact your entire experience of the game overall. What I mean by that is that your experience with Star Wars Outlaws might actually be completely different to mine. As an example, you guys might have a great reputation with the Hutts. You might want to sort of get close to Jabba the Hutt and become a big sort of hotshot in the Hutt cartel. And so while you're over there on Tatooine building a reputation for yourself with the Hutt cartel, in my playthrough, I might, for example, side with Crimson Dawn or the Pike Syndicate, and if I don't play my cards right, I could actually become a great enemy of the Hutt cartel to the point that they're actually chasing me down. So it is going to really differentiate our playthroughs. I think it's also going to add a lot of replayability too, in that you could probably do a second or even maybe a third playthrough of the game and side with different syndicates and stuff like that to make the game slightly different to how it was in the first playthrough. Now, in terms of like what changes your reputation and how we can alter these sorts of things, a lot of it is going to be from main story missions. Like I said, this is a big part of the story. There's obviously the overall story going on, but a lot of the story is actually to do with these crime syndicates and with us playing as Kay Vess, pretty much trying to weasel our way into some of these syndicates to almost get them to help us on this big final mission that we're trying to do. And so a lot of the main story missions, the stuff that isn't skippable in this game, is going to have a lot to do with the syndicates, and a lot of those missions are going to actually have options in them to, for example, double cross one of these syndicates or maybe take a different option that can either improve or deteriorate your reputation depending on that choice. We have seen it a few times now throughout the gameplay where we're very clearly in a main mission and it gives you the option of like side with Crimson Dawn or double cross Crimson Dawn, and obviously either of those choices will massively impact pretty much the overall game. From what I know, it won't impact the ending. I believe the game will obviously have a set ending. This game is canon, so they can't really have like alternate endings and stuff like that. But there is a chance it is going to be slightly different for each player. So maybe, for example, in that final sort of mission where we're doing a big heist that they've kind of alluded to in the marketing, maybe for you guys, you get to bring some of the people from the Hutt cartel along with you to help. Whereas for me, maybe I get to bring Crimson Dawn along with me and stuff. So it won't impact the actual ending itself or the overall story, but it will impact our own individual playthroughs, and that is something that I'm definitely very excited to see, just how different it could be on multiple different playthroughs. Now, on top of those main story missions too, there is going to be a lot of side content for this game as well. They have confirmed that the game is about a 25 to 30 hour long experience from start to finish in terms of the main story, and yet it is about a 50 to 60 hour game when we account for those of us who are completionists that want to go and do all the side content and stuff like that too. So there's going to be a lot of side content, lots of side missions, lots of little things off the beaten path, and a lot of these are going to have to do with these syndicates too. So outside of the main story, you can also alter your reputation in that side content, which is exciting to think about as well. Now, on top of that too, I'm going to assume that some of this can actually come from just straight up infiltrating camps and like killing those enemies. So if you just straight up, outside of any missions or anything, just go into somewhere that is owned by the Hutts, if you just start shooting those people, then obviously they're not going to like you very much, and that will lower your reputation with the Hutt cartel. So there are multiple different ways in which you can change your reputation, and once the game is out, I'll probably do a video on literally every single way that you can for those who want to get really good reputations with certain syndicates or even really bad reputations so that you can sort of get hunted down by the likes of Jabba the Hutt. Now, before we go any further, if you guys are new to the channel and you are interested in more Star Wars Outlaws content, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. There is so much content planned in both the lead up to launch and obviously after launch too, and you guys do not want to miss out on all the content that will be coming out on the channel. So make sure you guys are subscribed so you do not miss out. Now, I have already already kind of slightly touched on some of these syndicates that are going to be in the game, and now I wanted to run you guys through every single syndicate that we know of at the moment. As far as I know, these are the only ones that will be in the game, but there is the chance that there is some that maybe potentially left out, though I don't think that is likely to be the case. Now, starting off, we obviously have the Hutt Cartel that I've pretty much talked about predominantly in this video so far. I don't need to say much about the Hutt Cartel. If you've watched any Star Wars, you know who the Hutts are. They are obviously run by Jabba, or at least he is the face of them anyway, because there are actually a lot more Hutts than we really know of on screen, who are also pulling strings in the background as well. Now, the Hutts are mostly based on Tatooine. We obviously know that that is kind of their home base, and realistically, that's where they operate from. We have seen some gameplay though that does look like it's on another planet, where we see Kay walking into Hutt territory, and like I said, it doesn't quite look like Tatooine. It almost does, but there's kind of some greenery, and I'm not really sure we've ever really seen that on Tatooine personally. So there is a chance that we get some Hutt members on Toshara or Akiva or places like that too, but obviously where they will predominantly be is Tatooine. Next up, we then have the Pike Syndicate, and funnily enough, we actually don't know who their leader is at this time, at least not from what I've found anyway. After doing a hell of a lot of research, Lom Pike was their leader, but he was killed during the Clone Wars, and then we don't really know who had taken control after that. Apparently, there is actually no canon name for who is the leader. We're going to get introduced to them in this game, so we will find out who that leader is, but as far as I know, we don't actually know of them just yet. Now, the Pikes are pretty much known for running spies throughout the galaxy. That is kind of their main shtick, and they are going to have a really large presence on Toshara. Apparently, they are one of the biggest threats that is on Toshara, or I guess they're not really a threat if you guys do decide to kind of side with the Pikes. So we will be seeing a lot of them on Toshara, which is where I'd imagine we're going to be spending a hell of a lot of time in Star Wars Outlaws. Now, next up, we have Crimson Dawn, who I'm sure you guys know about as well. And Crimson Dawn is actually run by Kira from Solo: A Star Wars Story, who was obviously played by Emilia Clarke. In that movie, we find out at the end, or we already knew, but the casual viewers knew that Maul is actually the leader of Crimson Dawn. Now, at this point in the story, he had been killed by Obi-Wan. So with Maul dead, Kira essentially assumes control of Crimson Dawn, and she is going to be in this game as a pretty powerful player by the looks of it. Now, the thing with the Crimson Dawn is that they generally like to operate in the shadows more so than being a little bit more like overwhelming show of force, like the Hutts, for example, who they don't care about people knowing that they are a crime syndicate. Jabba and his gang do not care what anyone thinks of them, whereas with Crimson Dawn, they do operate just a little bit more in the shadows, which is going to make them a little bit more unique than the likes of the Hutts and even the Pikes too. Now, next up, we've actually got a new one, and this is the Ashiga clan, who were actually made for this game. So this is a clan that we hadn't actually seen anything of in any previous Star Wars content. They have essentially been designed by Massive Entertainment. Now, they are based on Kijimi, which we've obviously seen in The Rise of Skywalker. Now, it doesn't seem as though the Ashiga clan was still around during that time. Granted, we didn't see all that much content on Kijimi, but it was obviously kind of overrun by the Empire at that point, or the First Order. So I am kind of interested to see what the story is with the Ashiga clan, whether they survive this game or whether they kind of get taken out through the story, because I'm not too sure that they are actually around 20 or so years later during the sequel trilogy. Lastly, we then have Zerek Besh, and these are essentially our direct enemies in this game. So they are not really included in this reputation system. They are a crime syndicate in this game, but they're not going to be kind of interactable like the rest of these players. We're going to be able to do jobs and stuff for the Hutts and the Pikes and all that, but we won't be able to do anything with the Zerek Besh because they are pretty much hunting us down and trying to kill us the whole time. Slero, who is their leader, is pretty much our main enemy in the game, and like I said, they are hunting us down, which I'm sure we'll find out about in the first like hour or so of the game, what the go is there with the story. And really all we know about the Zerek Besh so far is that they are based on Cantonica, which is where Canto Bight is located, and that's also where K-Vess is from as well. So I'm keen to see where that story goes, but like I said, keep in mind we aren't going to be able to like have a good reputation with this syndicate because it's not quite the same as the rest of the syndicates in the game. Now, in terms of how all of this sort of impacts the game, I'm going to run through some of the pros and cons of like having a good reputation compared to a bad reputation, because it will, like I said, kind of drastically impact our experience with Star Wars Outlaws. Now, let's just say, again, using the Hutt Cartel as an example, let's just say you've got a really, really good reputation with the Hutts, and keep in mind there is multiple different like good and bad reputation levels. So you can have kind of like a good reputation and then a great reputation as well. I'm not 100% sure on the names of those reputations. And then same for the negative reputation levels. You can kind of have a slightly bad and then a very bad level with these syndicates, and that is obviously going to drastically impact what happens in the game. If you have a really good reputation with the Hut Cartel, then that can actually allow you into different areas that you otherwise can't get into. It can actually even cause those syndicates to help you out. So for example, if the Empire's after you, let's just say you killed a stormtrooper or something and the Empire's hunting you, if you enter Hut territory and you are sort of good friends with the Huts, well then the Huts will actually fight the Empire off and actually help protect you, which is going to be pretty cool. You can kind of have some friends in the game that will help you out in certain cases. And on top of that as well, you can kind of get access to different vendors that will allow you to like purchase or acquire different items and even potentially skins depending on that syndicate as well. So essentially, if you have a really good reputation with any of these syndicates, you're going to get some extra cool little stuff, as well as, like I said, pretty much just having friends that will back you up. We've even heard that there are landing pads in this game that are only accessible if you have a higher standing with each of these syndicates. So it'll even mean there are different places you can travel to that you can't actually get into unless you have a really good reputation with that syndicate. Now, on the flip side, let's just say as an example, you've got a really, really bad reputation with the Hut Cartel. That can actually make you become wanted by the syndicates. So we know that we can be wanted by the Empire and they can hunt you down, but the Hut Cartel or any of these syndicates can actually have you at a wanted level 2, to where they literally send people after you and hunt you down. You might just be strolling across Toshara minding your own business, and out of nowhere you may actually be attacked by the Hut Cartel members, for example. So that's going to be pretty fun to see how that all works, and I cannot wait to kind of toy with a lot of these. And like I said, I'm going to do multiple playthroughs and see how different it actually feels. Sometimes I'm going to want to be friends with the Huts, but I would actually love to get hunted down by the Huts as well. I think that would be a pretty cool experience to play in Star Wars Outlaws. But that is it for pretty much the entire reputation system and how it's going to work in Star Wars Outlaws. I'm keen to hear all of your thoughts, and I'm keen to hear who you guys want to have both a good reputation with as well as a bad reputation as well. So be sure to let me know down in the comment section. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and may the Force be with you always.